Welcome to Wicked Shizuku's Reviews, bringing you a southern perspective on books, movies, music, and much, much more. Stick around for a while, you just might hear something wicked. Well, hello and welcome back. It is episode 45 of Wicked Shizuku's Reviews, and this is a Friday read, so I will be continuing today with our new book of etiquette by Lillian Eichler. And I'm going to try to finish up chapter 3, section 3, what have you. It's just a Roman numeral 3. And I'm going to try to finish it this time instead of just reading a few little sections. I'm going to try to get to section 4 here. And that's about, I don't know, 9-10 pages. But last time we covered the post-war reaction. And this section is the passing of the age of tradition. So, let's jump into it. We are as yet too tradition-bound to realize fully what has taken place in the last decade. As Hugh Black says, we stand at the doorways of tradition, blind to the open door of our own new day. Through the struggles of colonization, through wars and industrial crises, through the hardships of pioneering and the rise of city luxury, America has gradually evolved its own distinctive etiquette. It is an etiquette that recognizes the value of common sense and that refuses to recognize the stilted formalities of another age. The ordinary book of etiquette still concerns itself with rules and regulations originated by ponderous gentlemen who lived in the Middle Ages or in the time of the Renaissance. But no power can crush the new simplicity and informality that have grown up in American society, slowly at first, but with ever-increasing speed. This sane and sensible philosophy of manners has taken hold of the mass mind and has freed us from the traditional etiquette that belongs to another age than our own. This idea is acquiring new importance in those cultural European centers where the instinctive American gesture of friendliness was once regarded as crude and unpolished. The outlook is profoundly interesting. There seems to be no parallel for it in history. We seem to be standing on the threshold of a new era, social and intellectual, but it is neither advisable nor to be desired that we cut loose hastily from long-established customs or traditions. Our inherited civilization and culture are something we cannot very well forget. Tradition holds an important place, all its own, and should not be underrated. Great masses of people and whole churches rest upon it. What we are doing here in America is tempering tradition with common sense. We are cutting loose from fads and fashions established by pompous dandies of the 17th and 18th centuries. But we are not forgetting the refinements of living that grew out of the Renaissance. Our etiquette is sane and wholesome, creating a sense of ease and comfort in social intercourse, rather than a feeling of stiff formality and restraint. The newer trend. And so, the age of tradition is passing. We are living in a time of high-pressure civilization, and the dull formal etiquette of other days is quickly giving way to a sensible and practical simplicity. A quarter of a century ago, any Southern gentleman would have told you that the carving of a chicken or a duck was an art, and an art that every gentleman must possess. Today, in 99 families out of 100, the carving is done in the kitchen because that plan has been found more convenient. And the art of carving is no longer regarded as one of the essentials of a gentleman. 50 years ago, a young woman was considered well bred when she knew how to enter a drawing room correctly. Today, instead of carrying books on her head in practice to gain poise and haughty bearing, she opens the books to find out what is inside, and instead of sitting near a chaperone until someone invites her to dance, she uses the information obtained from the books to ensnare a handsome young college professor and engage him in a discussion of Einstein's theory. Standards have changed, just as the machinery of living has changed. The typewriter was once frowned upon, and etiquette writers forbade its use in social correspondence, but modern etiquette accepts and welcomes so splendid a time-saver. There was a time when no one would have dreamed of inviting a friend to tea or dinner over the telephone, but now it is being done quite as a matter of course, except on occasions of formality. The new etiquette introduces a fine simplicity that cannot fail to appeal to the person who has tired of the stiff, stilted, heavily formal etiquette of the past. But its very simplicity and informality, this etiquette forbids and disregard of those rules and conventions determined by good sense and experience that are observed wherever well-bred sense and experience that are observed wherever well-bred people mingle. Unless you are acquainted with the customs that are now good form, you may find yourself exposed to many discomforts and embarrassments. Conforming to custom. Men are not willing that the rules they have established should be slighted. Accordingly, they judge only by appearances. De Landis wrote that in 1724, it was true then, and it is true today. We are living in a world where we cannot be indifferent to the customs and conventions that have been accepted unless we are willing to be unpopular, social outcasts. People judge us or dislike us by appearances according to the things we do and say. John Galsworthy has one of his characters say, "For people brought up as we are, to have different manners is worse than having different souls." It's the little things. It is the little things. An introduction graciously acknowledged, the right word at the right time, courtesy on the crowded streetcar. The hundreds of little things we are called upon to do and say daily in association with our fellows. Only little things, but they make life finer. They win us friendships. They bring us pleasure and happiness. Manners, however, are of secondary importance, and it is your manner that counts most. Manner is the spirit. Manners are an expression of the spirit. But how can your manner be right if you are not sure of your manners? How can you be poised, calm, at ease if you cheer in good fellowship when you are tortured by doubt, embarrassed by mistakes? Whatever your personality may be, it can be improved and more attractive by the added touch of complete self-possession. Learn to conform to the established customs. Find out what is correct and make it a practice to do that correct thing always, in private as in public. So it becomes natural and instinctive for you to do it. As simple as saying, "Good morning." That will give you poise and confidence. It will make you sure of yourself. You will be able to forget about the details of conduct and devote yourself to your manner, to the enrichment of your personality. The value of good manners. In social life, and in business life too, though less pronouncedly, we seek people with whom we can be at ease, the people whose manners do not offend us, and in whose company we feel entirely comfortable. There is nothing that costs less and at the same time is of more value to you than good manners. Good manners may mean many things. It may mean using a knife and fork properly. It may mean acknowledging an introduction in a pleasing, gracious way. It may mean removing one's hat in the presence of ladies. At a meeting of army officers during the Civil War, one of them began to relate a questionable story, remarking, as if to excuse his lack of good taste, that there were no ladies present. General Grant, who was acting as chairman of the meeting, remarked, "No, but there are gentlemen." And he refused to allow the officer to continue the story. That was good manners. It won for General Grant the respect of every man present. Henry Ward Beecher, on a very cold day, stopped to buy a newspaper from a ragged youngster who stood shivering on a corner. "Poor little fellow," he said, "aren't you cold standing here?" The boy looked up at him with a smile and said, "I was, sir, before you passed." That was good manners of another sort. It brought warmth and happiness to the little fellow, who had probably not heard a kind word all day. Be truly interested in people. Look for the joy and the sunshine of life rather than the gloom and the shadows. Be cheerful, kind, and courteous. Do nothing that will hurt anyone's feelings. Say nothing that will cause anyone pain. Try to scatter a little happiness wherever you go. Above all, be courteous and considerate, no matter what the circumstances. You will be surprised at the dividends of your good manners will pay. You yourself will infinitely be happier. You will make friends wherever you go. You will be conscious of a new sense of power and assurance in your contact with people. The habit of courtesy. In the American ideal of etiquette, In the American ideal of etiquette, courtesy ranks high, and the new simplicity and informality that characterize American life permit of no rudeness, no discourtesy in our contact with one another. We have seen, Chapter 1, how restraint of the impulses and regard for the rights of others formed the foundation of social law. In the smoothly organized society of today, as in the clan of long ago, a regard for others is what makes life pleasant and agreeable. Dalla Casa, the Archbishop of Vento, who wrote on manners and on etiquette in the 16th century, taught and believed that the real foundation of good manners was to be found in the honest desire to please. Courtesy is a fine expression of this desire to please. That is why, if you are courteous, you win instantly courtesy in response. As the very word indicates, courtesy is a flowering of the courtly ideals of the Middle Ages. At first, the word was used in connection with the court. Later came the word gallantry, and later still came civility, a word intended to include everyone and not merely the members of a group or class. But the word courtesy has remained, perhaps because of the romance and traditions associated with it. Courtesy means a kindly, considerate attitude toward everyone. It is an expression of good fellowship, a symbol of fine breeding. It springs naturally from the kindly heart. It is the manner of the man or woman gently bred. You will find it worth while to cultivate the habit of courtesy. School yourself to be courteous and kindly at all times, even under the most difficult conditions. Think courtesy no matter where you are or with whom you happen to be, and make every effort to avoid the little discourtesies into which it is easy to slip. Be as kindly to the little newsboy as you are to the person you most admire. Be as polite to the irate train conductor as you are to your guests at tea. Before long, you will realize that you have developed an unconscious courtesy. You will be kind because kindness dwells in your heart. You will be courteous because courtesy has become your natural manner. And courtesy is contagious. A conductor with an honest desire to please can make a whole coach of passengers feel good. A courteous man or woman at a party can make everyone feel comfortable and at ease. Courteousness radiates good cheer, and good cheer is catching. People cannot be rude or unkind to you if you have the habit of courtesy. Cultivate a true sense of values. It is of paramount importance, for the sake of your own social happiness, that you cultivate a sense of the true values in people. That is one of your first duties to yourself. If you want to live the sane and wholesome philosophy of manners that America has produced, writing of the fires of the World War and the terrific fusion that they have caused, Dr. Frank Crane says, it is not too much to hope that there shall appear those convictions that shall ensure the beginnings of a better order. We shall realize the worth of a man. We cannot cease hero worship, for it is instinctive to us. We must have our pedestals, but in the future we shall not erect upon them the statues of kings and princelings whose conspicuously is due to the accidents of birth, nor of shrewd millionaires who have outwitted their fellows in the struggle for possessions, nor of military adventurers who have seized the opportunity of a people's misery to exalt themselves, but our admiration shall be rather for those who have followed the example of Abu bin Adhim, and have had their names written among those who best love their fellow men. Do not estimate people for what they possess, but for what they are. The glorification of money and the display of wealth are essentially vulgar. The truly well-bred man or woman has simple tastes and fine discrimination, judging people not by their bank accounts or their ancestors, but by their own worth. Never treat anyone with contempt. Remember that Turner, the painter, was the son of a barber, and the great Cardinal Wolsey, the son of a butcher. Bunyan was a humble tinker. Ben Jonson, a bricklayer. Copernicus, a baker. Lincoln was a common man without education or polish. Genius rarely rises from the ranks of the millionaire. Will you value the people you meet for the dollars they possess, or for their honest value as men and women? There is at least one fine, admirable quality in every person. Find it. A sense of value will teach you to have a sense of values will teach you to have a good-humored tolerance of others. It will teach you to be in sympathy with whatever society you are mingling, to look for beauty everywhere, and you will find it, for whoever looks for beauty finds it, even in ugliness. On being different. Anyone can adopt peculiarities of manner or dress in mistaken belief that this expresses personality, but it takes courage and sincerity to be yourself. It is far easier to develop one or two peculiar mannerisms than to bring your personality to a flowering of its own richness and beauty. But do not be under the mistaken impression that by being different you are expressing yourself. You are not. To express self requires no effort. The personality needs no advertising. It is eloquent, but with a gentle eloquence that is entirely unobtrusive. Of course, if you are different, you will attract attention to yourself, but to attract attention is not desirable. It borders too close upon vulgarity. Many people actually glory in being regarded as eccentric, believing that this separates them from the crowd. But eccentric means away from the center. What these people are doing really is separating themselves from the center, the heart of humanity. The world will glance over its shoulder at them, may even be interested or fascinated for a moment, but will not throw wide its arms in welcome. If you want to be well liked, be yourself. Forget the peculiarities of manner or dress that make you different from the very people with whom you must mingle to find real happiness. We are all of us very much alike in the fundamentals of life, and we distrust instinctively those persons who are, or who pretend to be, different from us. We will lionize such persons for a season, talk about them, and write about them in our newspapers. But we will not love them as we love our simple, kindly, lovable next-door neighbor, who is always sane and sensible. The fetish of public opinion. There is, again, another extreme, the fear of being oneself, the fear of doing or saying what one knows to be right. Too many of us are governed by public opinion, concerning ourselves more with what people think of us than with an expression of our own true selves. Be reasonable in conforming to custom, but do not let your personality be lost in a desire to please everyone. Be able to say yes when you want to say yes, no when you want to say no. Do not be childishly fond of your own opinions, and be careful to avoid hurting anyone's feelings. The social ideal is self-respect plus a respect for others. There is a charm in candor. There is charm in the straightforward and truthful character without guile. The well-bred man is honest without fear of public opinion, but he does not make himself a brute over it. If the thing he has to say is in some way painful or disagreeable to those who are present, he asks himself, is there any real necessity for saying it? His manner is never aggressive. He is truthful, but not blunt. He is sincere, but not rude. He makes allowances for the differences of character and temperament in people. He is never actuated by dislike, but always by fairness. Wearing the mask of pretense. We all like to pretend now and then. The court jester plays that he is king. The little girl with her dolls pretends that she is the mother, and the boy with his bow and arrow is the brave Indian fighter. Grown men and women sometimes play at make-believe. That is all very fine. It would be a dull world, indeed, if we did not stroll occasionally on the magic carpet of fancy. But pretense, for the purpose of impressing others, is distinctly vulgar. No well-bred person pretends that he has more wealth or more education than he really has. No well-bred man or woman affects friendship with prominent people, with whom he or she has had but passing acquaintance. It is usually those who are not well-bred and who feel the need for pretense, using it as a tool to gain them social recognition. In this respect, however, it defeats its own purpose, for pretense cannot long deceive. The mask is bound to slip down in unexpected moments, and no amount of cleverness can conceal the mockery of shame. Too many of us wear these masks of pretense, little realizing that the true life mask underneath is far more beautiful, far more interesting, infinitely more worthy. Let us then be truly and sincerely ourselves, fearing nothing except injuring others, affecting nothing except a whole-souled interest in our fellow beings, living the simple, generous philosophy that is America's heritage. And we are done with chapter 3. So, I hope you found this interesting, educational, and if you liked it, would you please like, subscribe, and share? And also, if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section below, and I will get back to you as quickly as possible. And I hope you all have a good evening. Good night, everyone.